Hey, so if you hear me getting out of breath, it's because I just hoofed it up a very steep incline, about 325 feet above sea level, right above Avalon Bay. And, it was tough work, but it was worth it because look at this view. Whoa. So way up here is where I'm going to tell you the story of this building, the entrance to which you can see behind me, and the building itself you can see up here. This was the William Wrigley Summer Cottage. This was owned by William Wrigley of the famed Wrigley clan. They were one of the richest families in America in the first few decades of the 20th century because of their chewing gum fortune. Now, in addition to chewing gum, the Wrigleys owned the Chicago Cubs. They built Wrigley Field. They owned real estate. William Wrigley Jr. was the director of a successful bank in Chicago. So, filthy rich family, as you can imagine. And in addition to all that, they also owned Catalina. Since 1919, they needed a place to stay. And this is what they built. So, generations of Wrigleys would stay here. This was also known as the Summer White House because Herbert Hoover and Calvin Coolidge both made their way here to hang out with the Wrigleys. And so did the Prince of Wales. Hot stuff, very important family, as you can tell. The work started in 1920. Apparently, they had a lot of trouble creating an even land for it to sit on. They had to use gunpowder to blast out massive areas during the grading process. But once they started, it went pretty quickly. They started in March 1921, and it was finished later that year, December, I think. Now, the designer was a guy named David Renton. He was kind of the chief architect of the Santa Catalina Island Company. He supervised a whole lot of the construction on the island in the 20s, including the famous Catalina Casino. It was right across Avalon Bay over there. So it was done in a Georgian colonial revival style, the kind of thing that you would see in big mansions on the East Coast. This was very early in the development of Avalon, so they hadn't quite figured out the whole Spanish colonial revival theme that would define the look of Avalon starting about a decade later. The original house included the main residence and the servants' quarters and a garage and some other associated landscapey bits around the property. In 1958, it was given over to the island, and it was open to the public for about 20 years until 1978, when USC took it over for a fairly short time, about 7 years. Since 1985, it has been operating as a B&B, a very posh B&B. If you can drop $1,000 a night, you can drink scotch in the same billiard parlor where William Wrigley used to shoot pool with Herbert Hoover, or you can watch a bald eagle fly about from the wraparound terrace. Thanks for doing LA with me.